Okay, we're holding on Samach Zayin Amid Beis, right? Or Samach Ches. Samach Zayin Amid Beis.
Right, it's a
67.
Mishnah.
67b. Okay, we thank Hashem they're able to learn Torah every day. The source of our learning, we should have the base of Migdash immediately. The Mishnah starts like this. Balili Isarin. Isarin over here means the vessel, that's the Isarin. We're talking about the Aimer. And it says the Kayan comes to the Isarin, which is right now it's an empty vessel. He puts in it the oil and in the frankincense, and then yatzak ubalal. Shamne levinase. It skips that he puts the flour in. Maybe there's like a word missing, or maybe it's obvious. 1 second. What's that pass here? Yeah, the Shittim Kvetz adds in kaidem aselas before the flour. That's interesting. Usually, when you bake, when you make the dough, you put the flour in, then you add the oil or the water or whatever. They would add the oil. They would put the oil in first, add flour, and then add the oil afterwards. So like they would split the oil in half before, half after. So, I think it was by all of them like this. If it had oil, I don't know. Then yatzak, that means he would add more oil, ubalal, and he would mix it all up. Heinif, that's very important. He would wave it, which we said was in the 6 directions, right? Up and down as well. The Hagish, he would bring it close to the corner of the Mizbeach, which was also part of the service. Kamatz, he would do the Kmitza, the Hiktir, and he would offer it on the Mizbeach. The only thing that I'm concerned about in this Mishnah is I thought the Levina would go on the top. It would be separated. I didn't realize the Levina is getting in there first. Then you add the oil, unless I take that word out. What does it say here?
It puts on the side.
It was on the side. Because the Levina wasn't mixed in. But what does it say in the Mishnah? It says you put the oil and the Levina, and then afterwards they put the flour. So how do they keep it on the side if they're pouring the flour on top? Here's a different version of the text. Really? Okay. So, the Victor, they would offer up the Kai Mitzvah, Shar, Nechal Kahanim, what was the remainder was eaten by the Kahanim. Mishakara Va'imer, Yaitzin, Umaitzin, Shuk Yerushalayim, Shemalik Hamachkali. Now, I think Maitzin means not Maitzian that they would take out, but Maitzin means they would find. What happened is after the Aimer was brought, they would go out and they would find that this marketplace of Yerushalayim was full of toasted flour. How'd they get that flour already? They just offered the Aimer. How'd they have it harvested and toasted? They weren't supposed to do that. The Chachamim made a gzeira, according to this opinion of Reb Meir, that not to harvest until after the Aimer's brought. We don't know what people are going to do. They could start munching already, and they weren't supposed to. Rabbi Yehuda b'tzein Chacham Mayas says there's no decree. It was perfectly fine. They were allowed to have that. They weren't allowed to eat it. So that's why when they would go out, they would already be there ready. Yeah. There are things like this. Someone passes away and already there's a 600-page biography about him. How'd they do that? He just whatever. So okay. These things happen. So Rabbi Yehuda says it's a machlekes from Rabbi Yehuda. If this is a problem that they were prepared for this market to harvest the grain before. Correct the Gemara. This is very appropriate Gemara for Erev Pesach. Like Gazer Rabbi Yehuda doesn't decree that maybe you're going to eat from the grain before the Aimer. Everything Aimer is also the whole thing is Erev Pesach. It says Veraminu. We have a contradiction to this. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, or Baitkin, or Larba Asar, Ubarba Asar Shachris, B'Shasa Bir. Chamarmim Leibada Kulo. Rabbi says that if for some reason a person didn't do B'dikas Chametz the night when he's supposed to, it says don't fret. In the morning, you can do the B'dika then as well. And if you didn't do the B'dika then, so towards the afternoon, as it starts the time of the burning of the chametz, you go around and you do a B'dika then as well. That's perfectly fine. The Chachamim, they go on to even further. They say even after the time of the chametz, even b'toich hamayid, you can even check in the middle of the Yom Tov. Now Rabbi Yehuda responded to that. He said, "How can you check in the middle of the Yom Tov? You're going to end up eating it. You're going to start looking for it. We don't want you to even find anything, right? You're not going to look for the chametz. Not if you're going to eat it. That's to do with ownership, right?
If we make a sound, like,
so that's a general question. You just have to say read a paragraph. So why do you have to look for it? No, but in general.
At the beginning of the paragraph, I'll waste time during the
No, so why don't we just do the paragraph even before we do the B'dika? No, but why is there a mitzvah? Just do the paragraph, right? Answer is because you may end up eating it if it's left around. So we're not satisfied with just the paragraph. You have to search for it to make sure you don't have anything precious, a special hamantashen that you really like that you're gonna find. So a whiskey, yeah, so beer. So that's real chametz. So you have to do a bedika. So the Rabbi Yehuda says not to do a bedika once the time of the Isser starts. Why not? You might end up eating from it. Comes our Mishnah and says that you're allowed to have the toasted grains already beforehand. We're not concerned that you're going to eat from before the Aimer. It's a contradiction in Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. So Rabbi answers this contradiction. You see, Rabbi Yehuda stopped the missed bedika at the time when it's going to be Asr, because he might end up eating from it. The Chum said, no, you continue searching even during Yom Tov and on Cholamayid and search for the chametz. Rabbi says, Amar Rabbi answers, Shani Chadash, when it comes to the new grain, they weren't allowed to actually harvest the grain. They were allowed to pick it by hand. Because this had to be picked by hand, that's a totally different job. They couldn't get out their machinery and start harvesting. So the grains that you would find in the marketplace immediately by the Aimer were all hand picked. Yeah, farmers market, and so therefore you're going to remember not to eat from it. It was a different story. Amalei Abayas, a student of Rabbah, he tells him, he says, Teinach b'ktsira. I get it. While you're actually picking it, while you're harvesting it, you're going to recognize that you're doing it different there, because it's different, because it's before the Aimer, right? Usually you use this machine to harvest, right? Or you use a sickle. Here you're just pulling it off by hand. But what happens at the second step of the process? While you're grinding it and while you're sifting it, what difference do you see in this grain than any other grain, right? Once it goes onto into these other machines, so you're doing it typically, so you're going to end up eating it, and you didn't bring the Aimer yet. So it's all like kasha. Don't worry about that one. That's not a problem. We're doing that different as well. When the way we're grinding it is we're using a hand grinder. We're not using a regular mill. And also the way we're sifting it, we're not sifting it properly. When you have a sifter you have a sifter is like a container, a bowl that had the bottom of it has holes. What they did was, instead of doing it putting the flour in the container, they turned it upside down, and they put the flour on the top, and then they have to shake it like that, which is much more difficult because you have to shake it carefully. It would fall out. So they used the back of it. It was like a back end, like a shinoi. They did it in a backwards way, so you're not going to eat from it. Okay, that's the explanation for why Rabbi Yehuda over here wasn't chayshish, and by chametz he is chayshish. Yeah, to have it right away. It's a pizza right after Pesach. Yeah. People are hungry. They didn't have the new grain. Maybe they didn't. Right? Talk to me after Pesach when they see the line in the pizza shop. Beis Shlachin. What about the Beis Shlachin? The Sharia Ktsira. The problem over here, because we have a type of field. The Beis Shlachin is a field that's watered by hand. You have to physically go out and water. It's not watered by rain. You have to water it yourself. Over there, you're allowed to harvest the grain before the Eimer. In the valleys, you're allowed to harvest the grain of the Beis Shlachin. Why? Because the Eimer wasn't taken from this type of grain. But you weren't allowed to pile it up until the Eimer was brought. There's different kirsayis over here. Apparently, this grain wasn't the best grain. It was like a lesser quality. Okay, and if you would leave it, it would get. You couldn't leave it out so long. You had to harvest it immediately, or else you would lose the whole crop. So over here, you're allowed to harvest it beforehand. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there should be a problem because you're going to end up eating it. You're not doing anything different. You're doing a regular harvest. Elam Rabaya, rather Rabaya says the pshat over here, the difference between chadash, the new grain, where we're not concerned, and chametz is chadash badal minei, chametz le badal minei. It's a big difference. Chametz, a person eats all year. That's typically what he does. He sees a snack, he puts it in his mouth. That's chametz. All year he's eating crackers, and you walk by the coffee station downstairs with the cookies, without even thinking. You take a cookie and you just open the bag and you start eating. So chametz, if it's going to be out and you're going to be looking for it and you're going to find it, you're going to end up eating it. But chadash, the new grain, 6 months you have to wait until you could eat it. You're makbid on the new grain for 6 months, right? The 6 months go by from Sukkot already. They're asking what type of flour did you use in this in this. So then we're not concerned that they're going to eat from it. It's just a difference in the way people behave. It's a difference in people's behavior, right? Okay. Amar Rava. Rava says, Rava is also a student of Rabba. Rabbi Yehuda Kasha, the Rabbana like Kasha. You were only concerned with Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that when it comes to the chametz, where you have a concern, you might end up eating from it. So therefore, you'd only do a bedikas chametz if you missed it up until Erev Pesach in the afternoon. And once it becomes afternoon, don't do a bedikas chametz. You might end up eating from it. However, when it comes to harvesting the aimer, we don't have a concern. You can harvest the aimer. You can not harvest them. You can harvest the chadash even before the aimer. We don't have a concern. You're going to eat it. So we have to figure out what's the difference. So we have a teretz from Abaya that there's a difference. But what about the chacham and the chacham? Chacham say when it comes to chametz, you're allowed to search for chametz all the way through Yom Tov. Even on Chol Hamoed, you can continue searching for the chametz. And when it comes to the grain, to the harvesting the grain, you're not allowed to harvest the grain beforehand. I guess it's because it's Reb Meir. So there's a kash over here. Elam Rava. Rava says the Rabbi Yehuda the Rebbe like kasha kedeshaninan. I'll accept the teretz that Abaya said before for Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda that there's a difference between the way a person separates himself from chadash to the way a person separates himself from chametz. Yeah. Do you know people that keep chadash, that keep yashin? You know, it's a whole life. It affects the whole life. It's like mamash, like a diet. Every time they sit down to anywhere a bris, I think anything is. They have a question. Tell me about the bread. It's a whole new world. Yeah. You get oatmeal. You have to sign up. There's an app. You sign up. You put in the barcode on the oatmeal. And it tells you when it was harvested and when it's from. It's a whole Torah. That's the problem, right? That's what we're discussing here. Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned. The Chachamim are yes concerned. Rabbi Meir is concerned, but when it came to Pesach, he's not concerned that he's going to eat it. So the Gemara, yeah, Daniel, you want to say something?
In Israel, everybody keeps it though, right?
Everyone keeps it in Eretz Yisrael. Right
Mm.
over here, because half the people keep it, half don't. So it becomes more of a problem. Where every time you sit down somewhere, you don't know.
Mm.
Rabbanan, another Rabban like Kasha. Rabbanan, another one. It's not a question. Why? Because who atzmei machzer alav l'sarfe mechel achol minei. Chamim hold that when it comes to bedikas chametz, what are you doing over there? You're trying to find the chametz to destroy it. You're walking around with a blowtorch or with bleach if you're gonna, to make it inedible. You're afraid that you're gonna eat it while you're searching for it. Over here, it's a different story. Here, you're harvesting it in order to eat it. It's a different story. Rav Ashi Amar, the Rabbi Yehuda Kash, I'm going to give you a different teretz. What does it mean? They said that they would find the marketplace of Yerushalayim was full of flour. Kemach kali tanan was full of roasted flour. Kemach kali is not it's not edible. The roasted flour. Can't eat flour. You hardly make a bracha on flour. It's shahakal. Eat flour, right? Or maybe no bracha. I don't know. Flour is it's not really edible. This is a famous Gemara. The Gemara says that the Rav Ashi statement is barusa is an outside statement. It's incorrect. It doesn't belong in the text. It's supposed to be edited out. I can understand that Rav Ashi would say this from the time of toasting the flour. It's not edible. Ad kali ma'ikal. What about before they toast it? Which means fresh grain, I think they were able to eat. So that was edible. So at a certain stage, it becomes not edible until you turn it into bread. But before that, there were times that it was edible. How was this allowed? So maybe beforehand it was because they did it, but picking it by hand. They didn't use a machine to harvest. Like Rabbi answered before. The Gemara said, but we had a problem with Rabba's teretz because we said Beis Shlachim the Shaya Ktsira. What about the Beis Shlachim, which was the field that needed hand irrigation? Over there it says you were allowed to harvest and you were harvesting properly. What are you going to do for that? Elahad Ravashi Barusi. Rather, what Ravashi said is an outside statement that was supposed to be taken out. Yeah, sometimes I read a book and I see in the book a word with a line through it, and the editor forgot to. The editor was told to take it out or something. The editor told the publisher to take it out, and they forgot to take it out, and it's still in there with the. You could tell that they missed like a word somewhere. Anyway, that's what the Gemara is saying here. Ravashi, other Ravashi, Barusi, it was supposed to have a line over it, and the printer was not supposed to have it in here. Supposed to take it out. So anyway, but the Rebbe's father, who says that every word of Torah Shebal Peh is the word of Hashem, he says even the words Hader Ravashi Barusi is also the Eibishter said this. There's also Tibich Satira and read Hader Ravashi Barusi. That's yeah, okay. Mishikara Vaimer, Putar Chadash Miyad. Put together all of the other Rashi Brusis. I probably every Masech that has one. Yeah. When the Imer was brought, they were immediately allowed to eat from the new grains. Parachaikim, those cities, the communities that were far from Yerushalayim, that they don't know exactly when the Imer was brought, they can assume that from Chatzais and onward, it's already fine, that the Omer was brought. Sort of like the way they tell you after Pesach, before you start going into your chametz to eat, they say, wait an hour. assume that within that hour, the rabbi ran over to the guy and said, "Do you have the $1 million to pay for all the noodles that you bought and the thing?" He says, "No." He says, "Okay, so I'll buy it back from you, and you'll. So." Right, that's how they do it. He gives a down payment that makes it his already, and he has to come up with the rest of the money over the next week. And obviously he can't, and then we buy it back before email. So it's mutter immediately from Chatzos. Mishachara Beis Hamikdash. This mission is also in Sukkah. Mishachara Beis Hamikdash, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed after the Churban Hiskim, Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai makes another takana, right? Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai was making takanas after the Churban. He said, we're going to see it's not so. This one's not so simple. But Yom Haneif Kula Yasser, that the day of waving, which is that's called the day of the Omer, the 16th of Nisan. It's called the day of waving. The entire day is asa. You can't eat it until nightfall. So wait the entire day. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Yehuda says, say this is a takana. It's not just a takana. This is a Torah law. Shneamar ad etzem hayom hazeh. Until this entire day. Etzem, he's learning, means the entire day, not until the morning. So actually, the pasuk actually says, "Ad etzem hayom hazeh ad aviyachem es karban alekechem." Until the essence of this day, until the carbon is brought. Rabbi Yehuda is learning that. Of course, so if the carbon is brought, it's mutter. So why is it mutter from chatzos? The Shem Yedim, Shein Besdin Mesatzlam by. They know that the Besdin, which means the Kayanim, the Besdin of Kayanim, is not going to be lazy, and they're going to get their act together by chatzos. They're going to have brought Aimer. It's only when there's no Beis Hamikdash that when they don't bring the Aimer, you have to wait until nightfall. We'll see. It looks over here like there's a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai. We'll see at the end of the Gemara. Rav Shmuel Dar Mitarvayu, Rav and Shmuel both say Bisman Beis Hamikdash Kayam Aimer Mater. When we had a Beis Hamikdash, then the Aimer itself allowed the new grain, permitted the new grain to be eaten. Bisman Beis Hamikdash Kayam. If we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, so Heyer Amizrach Mater. All you have to do is wait for sunrise. Heyer, it's interesting. Heyer Amizrach sounds like Aleisa Shachar, but that's not what it says here. Here, Mizrach is Netzacham, Rashi says. Usually, Heyer Mizrach means Alois. The difference of an hour. What time the bagel shop can open, right? On the second day, well, it's not bagels. It's matzah shop. And, it's the second day of Pesach. There's a difference of 72 minutes, right? What's it? How long is there between Alois and Nate's? Is it an hour or something? It's about an hour, I think. So, my timer. What's the reason why that we have this distinction between if the Beis Hamikdash is around or if the Beis Hamikdash isn't around? So, Trei Kor Ksivi, we have two psukim. Ksiv ad yom haviyachem, until the day it's brought. Ksiv ad etzem hayom hazeh. It's actually dropped the yom. Ad haviyachem, it says until you bring it. Another pasuk says until the essence of this day. Haketzad. How do you have till you bring it until this day? So kan bisman shebeis hamikdash kaim. If the Beis Hamikdash is around, then you're going to bring the Omer, then you have to wait for the Omer. Kan bisman shebeis hamikdash kaim. And this it says until this day. This is when the Beis Hamikdash is not around, and you have to wait till the day is till the sun comes up. It's easier, right? Till the sun comes up, you don't have to wait for the Omer. It's immediately mutter. That's what Rav and Shmuel say. Rav and Shmuel say that minatayra it's mutter immediately once the 16th starts. Rabbi Yechim Reish Lakish Dar Mitavaya Filu Bizman Shebeis Hamikdash Kayim Heyer Mizrach Mater. Even in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, it was already mutter in the morning. The problem is Vaksiv Ad Aviyachem, but the pasuk says you have to wait until you bring the Omer. It says that's the mitzvah. That's just a little bit extra. But l'chatchila you wait. But b'diavad, you can already start earlier. Says Mishakar Vaymahuter. What do you do with our Mishnah? Our Mishnah started off that once the Aimer is brought, it becomes permissible. Hutter Chadash Miyad, then Chadash is mutter. It says the mitzvah, that's also just l'chatchila. It says Aimer hayamater b'medina b'shtei alechem. Now we jump to the next Mishnah that we're going to learn. It says that the Aimer was mater, the new grain, in the rest of the country. And the shtei alechem was mater, which was on Shavuos. That was mater, the new grain, b'mikdash. But you tell me the Aimer. It's not the Aimer. It's the 16th in the morning, even before the Aimer. Where it says that's the mitzvah. That's just l'chatchila. You're supposed to wait. There's a lot of questions on this opinion, but we're answering all those questions with the mitzvah. Yeah. So Rabbi Yechon and Reish Lakish are different than Rav and Shmuel. Rav and Shmuel said that the Beis Hamikdash, in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, you had to wait for the Aimer. After the Beis Hamikdash, you only have to wait for sunrise. Rabbi Yechon and Reish Lakish say that even in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, it's also mutter at sunrise. So what is it talking about the Aimer? It says l'chatchila, you wait for the Aimer, but already the Eved Shasat Chak, you can already start earlier. When it asks Mishachar Beis Hamikdash Hiskim Rabbi Yechon Zaka Yemenif Kulei Aser, Rabbi Yechon Zaka instituted that the entire day should be Aser after the time of the Beis Hamikdash. My time, why did Rabbi Yechonon ben Zakkai institute this? It says, Mehiri Yibana Beis Hamikdash. Immediately the Beis Hamikdash should be rebuilt. Yaimru, and people are going to say, Shtakid Mila Echal Nebeher Mizrah. He said, let me think. Last year, what did we do? Last year, we ate the grain immediately in the morning. Right? Who holds that you can eat the grain immediately in the morning? Everyone. Rav Shmuel, Rabbi Yechon, everyone holds it. Immediately in the morning, you can eat if there's no Beis Hamikdash. Now there is a Beis Hamikdash. Now it's a problem to eat it in the morning. At least according to Rav and Shmuel, there's a problem. According to Rabbi Yechon and Reish Lakish, there's really no problem. They can eat it now as well. But Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai instituted that you have to wait the entire day because people are going to say they're not going to know how to deal with the Beis Hamikdash because last year they ate it in the morning. And they don't realize that now that there's a Beis Hamikdash, you have to wait until the Aimer is brought. We should eat it this year as well. The last year they didn't have a Beis Hamikdash. They have Aimer. So therefore, hey, Mizrach mater. But hashta the Ika Aimer. Now that there's Aimer mater. You have to wait for the Aimer. 1 second. Isal kadaitach lemitzvah, mitzvah leikum beligzar. If you don't really have to wait for the Aimer anyway, it's only l'chatchila. So because of a l'chatchila, we're going to make a gzeira the following, that every year you have to wait till nightfall because maybe the Beis Hamikdash is going to be rebuilt this year. And you're going to make a mistake. And what are you going to, even when you make a mistake, what's the mistake going to be? That you ate when the sun came up? It's mutter anyway. Kasha and Rabbi Yechon and Reish Lakish that say that even when there's a Beis Hamikdash, it's mutter from the sunrise. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Let's see if that's actually accurate. Is that what you have also? Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai b'shitas Rabbi Yehuda Amra. Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai was following Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. The Amar Menatayra Aser Shenemar Adat Mayim Azeh Aditzum Mishal Yom Kasavar Advad Bechlal. Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai wasn't instituting because maybe the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built and we're not going to know how to behave it by the time of the Beis Hamikdash. We're going to think it's a continuation of last year. And last year we were allowed to eat it in the morning. Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai holds that it's never, that's not the reason. The reason why we have to wait the entire day is because that's what the Torah says, you have to wait the entire day. It's not a gezerah that maybe you're going to mistake now that there's a Beis Hamikdash. Because when there's no Beis Hamikdash, you have to wait the entire day. It says, Ad etzem hayom hazeh. Ad means until. Until means including, or is Ad the hyphen that you have when you have two numbers? You know, you have 5 to 10, you have 5 to 10, which means it's including 5 and 10, right? Or is it until 10, right? What does the word ad mean? What's ad? Ad means up until, or it means including. So it's a machlekes. But Rabbi Yechonon says, and when the pasuk says ad etzem hayom hazeh, it means including. Ad vad bechlal. You have to wait the entire day till it's mutter, including. Until, it's not an until, it's an including. The Gemara says, 1 second. How could you say that's the pshat in Rabbi Yechonon? It says, you want to say that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yechon hold the same thing. But Miflag Polygalei, I read the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that Tanan Mishachar based in English is going to be Rabbi Yechon Zaka Yemen Kulei Aser. I'm Rabbi Yehuda Alei Menatayro Aser. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yechon Zaka, what are you saying? He wasn't talking to Rabbi Yechon Zaka. It's 2 generations later. But he says, as if he's talking to him. What are you saying? How could you say that it's a takana? It's Menatayro Tzased. Obviously, he's arguing on him. Now you're telling me that Rabbi Yechon Zaka holds that. Says the Gemara answers Rabbi Yehuda hu de Katoi who sav Rabbi Yechon Zakim de Rabbanu Kamar B'loyi Midaraisa Kamar. Rabbi Yehuda made a mistake. He misunderstood Rabbi Yechon Zakai. Rabbi Yechon Zakai actually agreed with him. By the way, there's a lot of arguments in that happen like this. Both people are saying the same thing in this, but they're still arguing. But no. Even they sit down and listen to each other, they hear that they're both saying the same story. So we had a case like that in Besden that people were arguing, and they came in arguing over like $300,000. And when we asked them to itemize and to this and that, it came down. They were arguing over 20,000. It like went down. They said, "No, that I agree. That okay, that's fine." I said, "Okay, this is crazy. You be Michael 10,000, and you this, and let's just go home. We can go through all the details, but it's a lot easier." They said, "Fine." We ended the case like right then. It was, like on the day, on the spot.
Yeah,
They weren't able to communicate because they kept like shouting at each other. And then, in the Besdin, they said, you're only talking to us. You're not talking to the. So.
I had a case, the opposite. It was $50,000 at issue. Each side ended up spending $500,000
To get it.
Yeah, they started arguing, and whoever won the other side would have to pay for attorney's fees. So then, and then at the end, they had to go to court to figure out who won because each one won on different issues. So like it was very crazy. I almost stopped being a lawyer after that one.
They say that with divorce. They say that. They say you'll have a lot more money if you just give whatever just whatever you want. You'll end up with more money, and then anyway, okay. What happens here? So here we're saying that Rabbi Yochanan Zaka was saying exactly what Rabbi Yehuda was saying. The thing is, Rabbi Yehuda didn't understand them, so he said, "No, Rabbi Yochanan Zaka, no, that's not the pshat. I'm telling you the pshat." Really, Rabbi Yochanan Zaka actually held what he held as well. The problem is that the wording is "V'hay hiskin ktani," but it says Rabbi Yochanan Zaka instituted my hiskin, darash v'hiskin. What does it mean? Hiskin? It means he instituted. No, he expounded on the Torah. And he encouraged everyone to keep what it says in the Torah. Not that he made his own decree. It's not that he made his own decree. You're a papa. Rabbi Yeshua, Achli, we're to the Shitzar Nagi Shivsar. Now we get some actual stories. Papa, Rav Huna Rabbi Yeshua, these are students of Abai and Rava. Yeah, towards the end of the Amoraic period, they're in Bavel, and they're eating grain. They're eating chadash, achli chadash, but to the shitzar nagi shivsar. On the night of the 16th, the night after the 16th, like you say, Orla Basar, nagi shivsar. Then it's the night before the 17th, like the 17th already started. They were eating that night. After Ma'ariv on the 17th. So it means they waited the entire day. Kasabri chadash b'chutz la'aretz midirabanan u'lesveika leichashinan. Now the Gemara is interesting over here because the Gemara is concerned about one other issue. We hold, when it comes to Yom Tif, we have a 2-day Yom Tif. Yeah? 2-day Yom Tif. Why? Because maybe the first day of Pesach is not really the first day. Maybe the first day of Pesach is really the second day. So we have 2 Sidarim, because we have a doubt. They're in Bavel. These people are in Bavel. So what we're learning now is that that's only when it comes to Yom Tov. When it comes to the Isser Chadash, They weren't concerned about Sveika Diyama. When it comes to Chadash, they weren't concerned. They would already eat the new grain already immediately on the 17th, even though that could be the beginning of the second day of Pesach, the 17th by night. They have to wait the whole day of the 17th. They had no problem with Sveika Diyama. They didn't have that. Sveika Lecheshina. Rabbanan, the Bei Rabashi, the Rabbanan Yeshiva Rabashi, Achla B'Tzafar the Shivsan. They had a different story. They would eat the grain in the morning of the 17th. Kasabri Chutzlaretz Deiraisa, Kasabri Chadash Chutzlaretz Deiraisa. They held that Chadash and Chutzlaretz is a Deiraisa. So here, look at this. Here we're also seeing that the Machlekes if Chadash is Derabanan or Deraisa. But apparently everyone holds that it's one or the other. No, this is clear in the Gemara. So I'll tell you the pshat. The pshat is that this was grain that was grown by Jews. The heter is grain that's grown by non-Jews in Chutzlaretz. Yeah. Anyway, but they hold that it's a deraisa. Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai midrabanan kamar. When Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai it says was masakin, we interpreted that masakin meant the way we concluded our Gemara. Masakin meant that it was really a deraisa. He just encouraged the deraisa, right? That's what it meant masakin. But really, it's a deraisa. You have to wait till nightfall. So, but they didn't learn like that. This is the Rabbanan the Bei Ravashi. They learned that already in the morning it's mutter. And the chitakin, when did Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai institute this? That's liyom haneif. That's only for the first day. On the Sveika Diyama day, Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai didn't institute this. Yeah? They did more than one day. They waited until the morning of the next day. Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai said you have to wait for the night. That's only on the first day. On the second day, he didn't have that institution. The Sveika Leitakin, he didn't institute it for the day of the doubt. Amar Ravina says, Amali Aim. My mother told me. When Abaya says Amali Aim, it means his wet nurse. It means his stepmother or whatever. It wasn't actually his mother. Here, I'm not sure, Ravina, what it means. She said, your father, you should know, it tells Ravina, that your father would only eat the night of the 18th. Yeah, he would have to wait. He would wait the entire 17th. Savalak Rabbi Yehuda, the Chayesh L'Sveika, he holds, Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's a deraisa to wait the entire day, and he also holds of Sveika Derabanan, of Sveika Diyama, and you have to wait, not the 16th, but you have to wait the 17th also, and the 17th you have to wait until nightfall. Okay, now we have the Gemara, that the Mishnah that we quoted before in passing. The new grain was mutter in the rest of the country from when the Eimer was brought. That means the private homes were allowed to start eating from the new crop. Once the Eimer was brought, the environmentalists like the concept of Eimer, because they think what it means is that you have to finish your old grain before you start the new one, so you have less waste. Yeah. Anyway, that's not what it means, but anyway, that could be to make it a nice again. No. Shtei alechem, the korban that's brought on Shavuos, the 2 loaves of bread, b'mikdash, was matir, the new grain to be brought for a korban mincha, or the other things that were minchas nesachim, whatever, in the base of Mikdash. They could only use the old grain until Shavuos. They had an extra 50 days. Yeah. Ein mevi'en menachos bikurim uminchas behema. Uminchas behema kaidem la'imer. Maybe puzzle. Kaidem stay alechem layavi imhevi kasher. This is interesting. It says that the new grain, you weren't allowed to eat from the new grain until the Eimer was brought. You weren't allowed to bring a carbon mincha from the new grain until the Shtei Alechem was brought 50 days later. Eimer was brought on Pesach, Shtei Alechem was brought on Shavuos. But let's say you did bring it. It says b'diavad it's kosher. But if you brought after the Eimer, before the Shtei Alechem, during the Spheres Eimer, if you brought a mincha from the new grain, b'diavad it's kosher. That's what the Mishnah tells us. Yosef Rab Tarfon Mekakashli. This is a very sad Gemara. Rab Tarfon asks this question. He says, "Ma bin koydem la'omer la'koydem shtei alechem." What's the difference? Koydem la'omer, it's pasul if you bring a carbon mincha. Koydem shtei alechem, it's kosher. And but even though you're supposed to wait till afterwards, why is it kosher? Am lefanav Rabbi Yehuda ben Nechemya. Rabbi Yehuda bar Nechemya says, "Lav imamre koydem la'omer shekein lihutam mechlol yetzel hedyet." Koydem la'omer is entirely aser, so strict that even a regular person can't eat from it. But by the Shtei Alechem, then it's already permitted, at least for the private individuals, right? It's not permitted for the carbon, but it's permitted. So therefore, b'diavad is kosher. Shasik Reb Tarfon was quiet. Tzavu panav shel Yehuda ben Nechemya. Now the Rabbi Yehuda, not so clear. It's Rabbi Yehuda. The Shitach and Betzis takes out the word Rabbi. It's Yehuda bar Nechemya. Tzavu panav. His face is shining. That he one up. What's the expression? He one up. He got to Tarfon. Amalai Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says to him, Yehuda, Tzavu panach shafta zaken. Tamanim tarach yamim. He says, you're so proud of yourself that you responded to the elder. I'll be surprised if you have a long life. Am Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi says, Oisi Perek, Pras Pesach Haya. That was 2 weeks, that was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, 2 weeks before Pesach. Pras is half, means half a month. 2 weeks. We call it a fortnight, right? Fortnight before Pesach. Shalisi la'atzeres, when I went to the Oile Regel for Shavuos, Shalti Achrav, Yehuda ben Nechemya Hechna, where's Yehuda ben Nechemya? Amalei Nifter v'halachlai. He passed away already. Yeah. So he may have been like from some other, some other group or something. It doesn't tell us exactly what his story is. That's quite a punishment.
Lo nahu kabbalah zelazeh, right? It's like during the Omer. He passed away during the Omer.
Oh.
It's part of the 24,000.
Yeah, I have a Yad Elio that says it. Who do they quote? Yeah, they quote that. Yeah, but I know the 24 is in Muhammad. Who do they quote that says he was one of the 24,000?
You know.
Oh, really? They're just guessing? Okay.
Yeah, allow it. Just in case they run out of the first grain.
They allow it, but if it's mutter b'shas adchak, there's a discussion about if shas adchak is like a b'diavad. If you brought it already, it's mutter, right? Let's say you don't have. Is that considered like? Is that the same as you can do it lechatchila when it's shas adchak? Could be. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Nachman bar Yitzchak says, "L'divrei Yehuda ben Nechemya." According to Yehuda ben Nechemya, nesachim. If someone brought the sachim of the wine, lebikurim bikurim shekrivim kaidem laimer ksherim. The wine of the bikurim that's brought before the aimer should be kosher. What's going on over here? Well, you're allowed to have we have a Mishnah that says Ein Mevim Bikurim Kaidem Laimer. You're not allowed to bring the Bikurim before the Aimer. But that's only because of the grain. because of the grain aspect. But because of the grapes, the fruits, that's not a problem. The Aimer is not mata the fruits. The Gemara says pshita. Obviously, that's going to be fine because the Aimer only has the prohibition on the grain. This is not grain. This is wine. Could have said like this, that our Mishnah says that if you bring before the shtei alechem, we say it's mutter. Aval hachad leihuter mechlalai lai. But over here, it was never permitted. Why was it never permitted? Because it was never forbidden either. So it's not like there was a dispensation for a hedyot. So therefore, we see that it got a little bit more lenient. Over here, the wine was never prohibited at all. So I could have thought, Kamash Malan, Kolshkin, Hacha, the Lay Itzar Klal, coming to tell me that it was never prohibited. Why do I need to tell me that? Oh, in other words, lechatchila you don't bring it. That's what it says. Even though there's a halacha that lechatchila you don't bring the bikurim before the Aimer, but b'diavad it's going to be mutter. What's the chiddush? What's the chiddush? If it was the Aimer, it has nothing to do with this. So I could have thought that the Aimer is matter the grain partially. It's matter the grain for a hedyot, even though it's still usher for a carbon. They could have thought that dispensation already permits it, that b'diavad it's going to be kosher. However, when it comes to the grapes that you're bringing for bikurim, the Aimer doesn't permit it at all, and we said not to bring it before the Aimer. So I could have thought that there's no dispensation there. It says Kamash Malan that b'diavad it's going to be mutter, because it was never prohibited. It's even better. It's not that it was prohibited, but it became slightly permitted. It was never prohibited. Okay. Now the Gemara has 4 questions of Rami Bar Chama. Interesting questions. It starts off with a siman. Seder Hanatza Galai Pil siman. Let's leave it over here. Let's stop right by Seder. All right. Okay. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Mazel tov again.
Thank you. Thank you. Only simcha.
Yeah, is your grandchild a boy or a girl?
Boy. The boy.
Oh,
Yes, it's a Shalom Zacha and a bris and
Mazel
Where,
tov, mazel
where,
tov.
where are they?
they're here. They're
Oh.
staying with us. Yeah, that's why I'm it's hectic. It's hectic. It's Baruch Hashem, good things.
Baruch Hashem, Mazel Tov.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good day.
Good day.